everyone. My name is Aisha Khan. I work at Macadamian. Today I'm presenting Designing the Process with Tox, a real-world Windows 8 application. This session is almost like a story because that was one of the first Windows 8 applications that we built at our company. Designed, built, and actually posted to the store successfully. So before I move on, I do have to make the request to follow us on Twitter, post something on Facebook. I also have to remind you that that's not a PL, it's a PI for Pure Imagination. And this session is Design Session 4, so the hashtag is DES4, and again, Windows 8 Pure Imagination. So the agenda for today's talk is, I'll start with what idea we had. Okay, sounds good? Is this better? A little bit louder? Yep. Yeah, so that's why I'm asking if I just need to project a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, do remind me again, just in case, especially in the back if you can't hear me. Yep. That would be good. Are these both microphones? This one? Not the red. Okay, there we go. Is that better? A lot better? Because I can't tell from here. All right. So I'll start off the talk with just showing you some napkin sketches. They're not on a napkin, they're actually on a sketchbook, but that's really where we started from. We had this random powwow session and came up with an idea of what our first Windows 8 app could possibly be. And you know, it was kind of like a dream. Then I'll actually show you the actual app that is in the store and available. It's free, so if you have your slates with you, you can download the app. It's called Tox. After that, because the idea behind this session is to kind of show you the design and development process that we went through, trying to get this app finished and out the door, I will be covering a few issues that we really came across that became discussion points that developers, QA, design went back and forth on. And in a lot of cases, we made a choice, but it wasn't necessarily our ideal choice because, again, it's the real world, so you have to make compromises, whether it's because you don't have enough people or enough time, or because the ideal solution might just be way too much or over the top. So some of that is going to be covered under Content over Chrome, orientation, and custom animations. And then I threw in just a tiny little section for common gotchas that actually got us, and we had to fix them after we went through App Excellence reviews or realized right before we were starting to actually send our app to the store. So, the napkin sketch. So as you can see here, I apologize that in the room you're having to make do with a slightly cut off picture here. But this is a storyboard that we just drew on a piece of paper, and we tried to reach really, really high. And you can see that there's an idea of a home, so that would be our hub. Our goal, we were very clear about, we would be viewing TED Talks and sharing them with others. There would be a splash screen. You see the detail screen over there with a play button because that's where you would actually view the talk itself. Then you notice in our little list that we actually want to share it. We want to be able to pin certain talks. So we're reaching high. There's the search at the bottom there as well, where you see the panel moving in from the right. And then at the very top, we also have, which you can't see to the right, but you see an arrow saying similar. That's simply the idea that we also wanted to suggest similar talks to the one that you've selected and are watching. So this is slightly refined. The navigation is a bigger picture of our hub. We had this idea where we would have these hero tiles that are bigger than others for one specific reason or the other. We would have home, video, audio, and favorites. A lot of this got thrown out as we refined our app. But this is where we actually started from. This is the detail page in our case, so that's the video. And as you can see, it's got that idea of similar or related listing listed to the side. You can tell we did this really, really early on because we've got questions like, ask Romeo because he's our resident expert. He might know. Can we do both? This arrow indicating that can we actually have a vertical scroll within this detail view when we're horizontally scrolling, because we would have more information to share for that specific talk. So very, very early on, and obviously a lot of learning to do at this point. There's also the idea of the snap view, and in both views you can see that we've got the app bar and we've got ideas of what we want to put on the app bar. The idea of going home, search, but that makes no sense because we all know search should actually be a charm panel that comes out from the right-hand side, so why would you put it in the app bar? Add favorites, and then you could also pin a tile, pin a talk. So what that would mean for us would be a tile would show on your start screen, and you would actually be able to go directly to the talk rather than just launching the app from the hub or where you had been last. So this was our sort of dream with lots and lots of expectations. Okay, I am actually going to go into the demo now of what we actually ended up building. So this is the Talks app. This is the hub of the Talks app when you first come in. You do have the ability to favorite talks. It actually got moved up to here, so if I select one, I can remove that one from favorites because it's actually part of favorites already. If I select more, I can unselect or add all of them to favorites. And you'll notice that the list for favorite talks starts to grow. So this is a very typical hub view. We went for the grid app template so that you start with your hub, you can go into your section. So here the section view is distributed by last 7 days, earlier this month, October 2012, September 2012. So you would just do it monthly in our section view for TED Talks. Another section view would be favorite talks, and so you would only see last 7 days, earlier this month, by how they were posted. You can actually make it from the hub directly to the detail view, which is where you actually start to use that. Here's the app bar for the detail view.
A lot of ways the people around us
was
can help
favorited, so you
improve
could
our
remove it
lives.
from favorites.
We don't
There's the
bump
related
into
talks
every
that we're
neighbor,
suggesting.
so a lot of wisdom never gets passed
Notice how
on.
most of the
But we do
controls
share the
are
same public
in the app bar
spaces.
itself rather
So
than
over the past few
on
years,
the
I've
page.
tried ways to share more with my
So
neighbors
even the
in
volume
public
control
space,
is right here.
using simple
Pause
tools like
is right here. You can change the resolution of the talk if it's available, and you can also make it full screen. And I will exit full screen. So this is the basic idea of the app. I do want to show that we also implemented search. Main screen here. And so talks by Hannah Brencher show up, and we could select her, but I'd like to not do that. And you can see that the search is applied. So if I want to also show you the fact that we had a live tile, which rotates again through 5, which is your general rule of the latest talks. You can actually make this into a smaller tile. You can turn off the fact that it's live or turn it back on. Launch, you see where you were last. Just wanted to give you a basic overview of what app we actually ended up building and where we started. Okay, so if we return content over Chrome. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, that what I'd actually like to cover today is the snags that we hit, the things that were extreme discussion points between design, development, and even QA. One of the first one was content over Chrome. When is it too much? So when I say content over Chrome and when is it too much, the screen where this discussion happened on, it's the video player, so your actual main detail view. Do we put all the controls in the app bar? We did actually go that far. We actually even had the time tracker that you see under the video and the seek also in our app bar. So how do you decide whether everything should be in your app bar or some of it should be in the content? So this was actually a really big discussion point. And at the time, because it was a lot earlier and there wasn't a lot of example apps, we started looking at other video apps to see if we could be inspired by them. But for us, it was really important that we take this idea of content over Chrome to heart, and we might have gone to the extreme end and then realized that, oh, hold on, when you launch into the video player, I've selected a video. Right now, all I'm looking at is a video that doesn't play. That means I have to pop up the app bar and then actually say play. Is that really what the user wants? Probably not. Okay, then do you want to pop up the app bar automatically? Probably not. So, okay, what do we do there? That's one of the reasons why the seek actually made it back onto the screen, and it actually is right below the video. But everything else is on the app bar. As I showed you, the volume control, it's still on the app bar. The HD button or SD, if you have to switch back and forth, the full screen, that's on the app bar. But when you go to full screen itself, again, we had to have that conversation. How much Chrome should be on the full screen and how much of it should end up on one of the bars or the other. So this was an interesting question. A mix, but what is the right balance? And it was hard to strike that balance. We are still arguing sometimes with UX, with people who review the app, with actually people from Microsoft too sometimes. They come by the office and they're like, I have this awesome suggestion for you. I think you should move the volume control back on the page. So it's not a decision that's easy to make. You have to figure out for yourself, for your user, what is the use case scenario that you most value. And for us, it was that we don't want to disturb them with Chrome. So we only gave them the one control, which was the seek, so that they can, without having to pop a bar up, go between the video that they're watching. Okay. This was another question. I've selected a talk. What should happen next? Whether it's from a section view, whether it's from the hub, or even a detail view, right? What should happen next? When should the video start playing? Should it start playing with a play button? I'm sure you've actually, if you actually study a few different, whether it's web video players or Windows 8 video players, you'll notice there's a common design where you'll see the player, but there'll be this play button overlay on top. So until you tap it, it doesn't actually start to play. Okay, so that's an option. The image tap, which is similar, so that you just see the image, which is a screenshot, and you tap it, and it'll actually start playing. In this case, the play button could also have meant just the play button right under the video on the page, the play button on the app bar if you have them in both places or only one. And should the video actually start playing immediately? That's another option, and that's what we actually ended up going for. As you saw, the moment I selected it and you went into the page, it actually started playing the video. But that had its own issues. Data concerns. Will users be upset with us because we automatically assume that you've selected a video, so you want to watch it? The talk has to start right now. Another option that we discussed, because this whole content over Chrome idea was grabbing us, was, well, if I've tapped it, I really want to watch this video. Why isn't it full screen and why isn't it playing already? Right? I selected it. What else do you want from me as a user? And then the last one is the idea of maybe have some settings that allows the users to give us permissions and decide that, yes, actually, I have no problem with you maxing out my data plan, and every time I select a video, please go ahead and play it immediately. Or a warning right before it actually starts to play. And warnings could be smart because we know we have the ability to know whether this person is on a metered network, whether they're on a wireless. The moment they switch between the two, perhaps we could give them a little bit of a heads up. Hey, pausing the video right now because you're switching to your network and you're gonna take a data hit because you've stepped out of your house, as an example. So that was another option, and we had to discuss all of these. And in some cases, we actually implemented them, then removed them, then implemented them again, and went back. There was these crazy cycles, and whether it was because a developer went and said that, no, I really just wanted to go to full screen and start playing. But then our designers would say, well, you still want them to see the information because the information wasn't shared anywhere else. It's a detail view. Do they actually know that this is what they want? For now, all they have is the author and the title of the video. So maybe, yes, it should be playing, but let them see the information regarding that. Let them see other related videos because perhaps they came into this view because of the topic that interested them. And if they really want to focus in on that content, they can go to full screen. QA also stepped in and said, you really should have some warnings here. What happens when it goes offline? If it's starting to play immediately and your network is being really slow, what do you do? So we had these round and round and round circles until we all sort of decided on something because it met our use case, and sometimes because this is a practical app, you have to fight for resources. Do you have dev time? Do you have QA time? Do you have designer time? So sometimes we had to compromise based on our capability of the team that was working on the app. So going as far as the user permissions and warnings, that's a lot of work, and we actually didn't have time for that. We still let the content over Chrome idea trump by letting the video play. We didn't go as far as going to full screen immediately, but we wanted to go as far as having the user have options. We just didn't have the team there and ready to actually implement that. But having said that, it's totally a possibility. It's there in our task tracker, right? That's an option we can implement, and it will improve the user's experience. Oh, this was interesting. So again, going to content over Chrome. Yes, we took this one to heart, big time. At Macadamian, it was just like all you heard every day, content over Chrome, guys. I want to throw this out. I want to throw this out. So for full screen, the question became, where do the controls go, right? Okay, if I look at what I had on the detail view, let's keep those controls in the app bar. And if the user needs them, they can pull up the app bar. Well, what about the seek that we had actually placed on the page? Does it in full screen really need to be on the page all the time for the user when really they want a full screen view of this video playing so that they can enjoy it? Okay, so where do we put it next then? If we don't want it to be on the screen, taking away from the user's experience, where do we want to put it? Back in the app bar? We actually ended up deciding to put it at the top and use the top app bar for the user to be able to seek through the video, see where they were in the timestamp. The other thing we changed on this view was that when you first go to full screen, you do actually see the bottom app bar and the top app bar pull up, but they fade away within about 5 seconds. A single tap from the users brings it back. Another tap takes it away. So they're very easily able to go back and forth between any controls that they need and yet we do not take away from the video itself playing. And it's the user's action that brings those controls into focus. So if they need to leave, if they need to exit full screen, if they need to change the volume, they're able to do it seamlessly while the video is playing, and then the controls vanish themselves, fade out, and the user can continue focusing on the video. The second interesting thing that happened with full screen was, what do you do in all these views? What happens in portrait? What happens in snap view? What happens in 2/3 view? And this could even be the transition, right? You saw that the way we allowed you to go to full screen was from the detail view, from the app bar, you would tap on full screen. Okay, let's say if I am snapped. Let's actually switch to the app here. And I will do this. Ooh. Okay, I'll snap the other way. Let's go here. There we go. Sorry. The quarter right-hand side of my screen is chopped off, so I have to remember to do any snapping on the left-hand side. Okay, so this is just the regular hub. And if I go to snap view, the video is still playing. It's a small little video, but it's still playing because the user does want this view and does want to hear it and watch it in a little tiny view. But does it make sense to put a full screen button here? What would actually happen? Would we force this app to take over the full screen and actually,
we don't
if
bump
you had
into
a
every
second app
neighbor, so
running
a lot
on the
of
right-hand
wisdom
side,
never gets passed
dismiss it?
on. But we do share the same public spaces.
Is it a possibility?
So over the past few
or
years, I've tried ways
would
to
you
share
just
more with my neighbors
remove
in
the
public
list that's
space,
below,
using simple
and
tools like stickers,
this
stencils, and chalk.
video would get as
And
big
these
as it
projects
can,
came
except
from
it's already
questions
as
I
big as
had,
it
like,
can.
how much are
So
my neighbors
in this
paying
view,
for their
we actually ended up
apartments?
deciding that it made no sense to have full screen. But in our, where do we? In our. In the 2/3, you can see that there's a possibility.
Want a lot of things
you can
out of
do
life,
full screen here.
But I think
But
more
the
than
question
anything
still
else,
becomes,
they want
does full screen
happiness.
always mean you take over the space you
Aristotle
have,
called
or does it
happiness
mean
the chief
you
good,
take over your whole
the
device's
end
screen?
towards which all other things
You
end.
have to respect the fact that I actually want to see my
According
presentation
to
on the
this
right-hand
view,
side, or
the reason we want
left-hand
a
side
big
in this
house,
case. So full screen here
or a
means
nice car,
take up the space that I've
or a
actually
good
given
job,
you.
isn't that these things are intrinsically valuable. It's that we expect them to bring us happiness. Now, in the last 50 years, we
And I'll just
Americans have
quickly
gotten a
show
lot of the things that
everybody
we
what I
want.
meant by
We're richer, we live longer,
tapping,
we have access to
giving the
technology
user
that
the
would have
power
seemed like
to bring
science
back
fiction
the
just a few years ago.
controls for full screen.
The paradox
and then they go
of
away. Same
happiness
goes for
is that
volume.
even though the objective
It fades
conditions
away.
of our lives have improved
So
dramatically,
that
we
if
haven't
you
actually
wanted to,
gotten any
you would be able
happier.
to just not care and
Maybe
watch
because
your,
these
your
conventional notions of
content,
progress
which was
haven't
most
delivered
important to
big
you.
benefits in terms of happiness, there's been an increased interest in recent years in
Okay,
happiness
let's go
itself.
back. Oh, do I have to restart? There we go. Okay. Portrait was another one. I want to ask Matt, can I take this out of the device at all, out of the port at all, or no? Okay, I'm going to attempt to see if I can do something funny here, but
People have been debating the causes of happiness
hopefully
for
it
a really long
adjusts,
time, in fact, for thousands of years.
even though
But
it's
it
in a
seems
port.
like many of those debates remain unresolved.
No. Okay.
As with many other domains in life, I
So
think the scientific
portrait was
method has the
interesting
potential
again
to answer this
for
question. In fact, in
full
the last few
screen
years, there's been an
because
explosion
your
in
screen is
research on
essentially
happiness.
this
For
wide.
example, we've learned a
right?
lot about its demographics, how things like
And
income,
your video is
education,
as big as it
gender,
can
and
be,
marriage relate to it.
Or you could make
But
it a
one of the
little bit
puzzles this has
bigger.
revealed is
But
that
you have all
factors
this
like these
empty
don't seem
space
to have
at
a
the bottom.
particularly strong
We
effect.
do have the fast
Yes,
and
it's
fluid
better to make more money rather than
concept,
less,
so
or to graduate from college
we do
instead
have
of
it,
dropping out.
you know, that the
But
related
differences
talks
in
move to the
happiness
bottom,
tend to
but
be
there's actually a
small.
lot of space there
Which
that's
leaves
kind
the
of
question,
empty.
what are the
But
big causes
if I
of
wanted to
happiness?
make this video full screen, does
that's
it
a
make
question we
sense
haven't
to
really
just
answered
continue
yet.
having this
But I
white
think
space at
something
the
that has the
bottom
potential to
with
be an
a few
answer is
related
that
videos
maybe
there
happiness
when I
has an
say full
awful lot to
screen?
do with the
Or would
content
full screen
of
mean
our
get rid of
moment-to-moment
everything,
experience.
have those
It certainly
controls,
seems that we're
but
going
the
about our
video player is
lives,
only
that what
half
we're doing,
half the
who
screen,
we're
right?
with,
Because it's as big
what
as
we're
it can
thinking
get
about, have a big
lengthwise.
influence on our
But you have all
happiness,
this
and yet these
empty
are the
space
very
at the
factors
bottom.
that have been
Okay.
very difficult,
Next
in
was,
fact,
well, why
almost
don't we
impossible
center it?
for
Because it is
scientists
as
to
big
study.
as it can
A
get
few years ago, I came up with a way
in
to
the
study
portrait
people's
orientation.
happiness, moment to
But
moment,
you were
as they're
still
going
wasting
about
all
their
that
daily lives
space.
on
So
a
for
massive
us, the
scale
correct answer
all over the
became,
world.
actually,
Something
if
we'd
they
never
said full
been able to
screen,
do
they mean
before.
full
Called
screen. It doesn't matter what orientation they are in.
uses the iPhone to
So we
monitor
gave
people's
them
happiness
full
in
screen
real time.
in portrait
How does this
orientation, and that
work?
means that they can
Basically,
actually
I
change
send people
back
signals at random points
to
throughout the
landscape
day,
and continue
then I ask them
watching
a bunch of
exactly as
questions
you
about
would
their moment-to-moment experience at the
in
instant
landscape when
just
you said
before the
full
signal.
screen.
The idea is that if we can watch.
But again, this was discussions, UX, dev, QA, back and forth. No, I think it should be this way. I think you should actually make it be as big as the screen can possibly let and center it. That's it. So you know, it's interesting with Windows 8 that we have spurred a lot of discussion within our company, within our different projects, where these concepts are starting to show up in other discussions as well. So I think somebody asked me this earlier today, actually, right before the talk, the early bird who's busy making his app right there. So here's the slide I promised you I would show you. Again, portrait. What does each view look like in portrait mode? This was an interesting discussion because we did snap view first, and it was this gorgeous list, right? You had the title here and a little icon on the left, and if you were in detail view, you had the video at the top and a little icon to the left for the related videos below, and you could scroll up and down vertically, and it looked great. And somewhere we read that always, you know, decide that you're going to move with the longest edge. So in portrait, the longest edge is vertical. So obviously it makes sense that for all of these views we should do that, which we did actually. We did actually implement that. And then one of our QAs comes along and he's like, sorry guys, I found this guideline that actually tells you what you're supposed to do for that view. And it means that your hub would still show those same tiles. You would still be scrolling horizontally, but you would adjust your view to fill in the space below. So your view should not be fixed. It should be fluid. Instead of, you know, let's say in this example here, oh, I'm so sorry guys that it doesn't show completely. There's a third thing there at the side, but I'll try and explain it. Can you kind of sort of see it? Yeah. Okay. So if you notice here, you've got those 2 tiles, then 3 tiles. If I went vertical or in portrait mode with the 3 tiles, actually, I would start filling in the bottom space, and I'd actually probably have about 5 tiles filling that space, and still with the same titles at the top and moving through. If you guys want to see an example of this, I can show you the app in portrait mode afterwards, because we already tried and failed. So apparently when it's docked, you can't. So that was an interesting discovery, and actually it's a compromise we made by following this, because our designers are still not quite happy with it because it doesn't look that great, especially for our hub and our section view. For our detail view, it actually looks pretty good because you just have the video player at the top, related on the bottom, and it takes up some of the space. But on our hub, we only have about 3 options. It totally looks like you still need to scroll over, so that hint is there. It's not like the user doesn't know that they can scroll towards the right. It just didn't look as amazing as we wanted it to. And so for now, we've stuck to this option, but we're still trying to think, can we customize this to make it better? We'll follow this idea, but maybe introducing the hero tiles, which we weren't able to do. And every time I say hero tiles, I mean some tiles that are deserve more of your attention for multiple reasons. So if it was a popular section, then it would be something that's more popular, something that's recent, something that's trending, as an example. So does this answer your question, though, from earlier today? Yeah, so we had this discussion as well, and we actually implemented it one way, then undid it, then did it again, and then actually undid it because someone actually found the proper guideline that actually told you that's how you're supposed to do it. Okay, so the next one was the idea of custom animations. And these are design docs from our designer in California, and she had this web session with us over WebEx, and a bunch of developers sitting there trying to see, you know, what can we do with this app, and she came up with a few ideas for us to make our app look a little bit more sexy. I think that's the word we used mainly. So in the first custom animation option, you've got a splash screen. The hub shows up just like you've seen. And then the user taps on one of the videos, but it's in the second section. And then you notice in step 4 here that it's, oh, you don't see it. I feel bad about this. So step 4, which you can't see in the room, is that the tile that was, so when you tap on a tile here, what happens is this, it transitions slowly as it gets big and takes up the space and becomes the detail view, so which would be like that. And then the related videos would show up, fade in one by one. This was her idea. And then if you were to select something from the related videos, the same animation that you can't see over there would happen, which is that the tile would move over and increase in size at the same time. The second custom animation option that she gave us was that, hey, why don't we actually move the whole grid over? And you'll get this jerk feel of the whole hub moving over. So splash screen, same hub, and you notice there with the brackets and arrows, she's explaining that this moves off the screen to center on the one that you tapped on. And then after it's in place, it starts to increase its size. And then again, the related videos pop in, and the same previous solution for how the related video would come into focus if that's what you tap next. Custom animation option 3. Splash screen talks, and then you see the same thing of having the whole grid shift over. But instead of that video increasing in size, we were going to fade it into the screen. And then the related videos would fade in, or they would slide in, which is the little squiggly bracket. It would move over once you've selected it, and then fade in, repeat about here. Out of these, I don't think we did one. Why is that? We had the session, we had the discussion, we chose an option. The option we chose was custom animation number 2. This app was done in XAML and C#, and people felt like this would be the one that they could implement easily or quicker than the other more complicated options, and that it would actually look really cool. It would also go along with the idea, you know how when you launch an app, often the content does that little slide in. So the slide in at the top people really like because it kind of worked with that. The moment you open the app, things slide over. Okay, when you select something, let's do the same idea. So this was chosen for that reason, but we actually ended up running into real world technical problems. And it was as simple as some of the models that we had written were not as clean as they could be. And that really limited us in terms of the animations we could do, especially on the hub, because you could have hundreds of videos on that. And then the section view was worse because you could have thousands of videos showing up on a section view because it's by time. And the performance hit we took trying to put this animation in was terrible. The user experience just went right down. it was choppy, it was jerky, sometimes it would freeze, sometimes you couldn't really see the thing you had selected and you just waited and waited and waited. QA did not like that option, just letting you know. They did not like what code we put in. So we actually ended up doing a little bit of refactoring first. But by this point, we had committed ourselves to, and brought ourselves to a point, and everyone who works in software knows this, that you have deadlines. And sometimes you have time to get refactoring in. Sometimes you have time to get a little bit of refactoring in, but not all of it. And some of that has to wait for later. So we were actually able to give some refactoring time in so that the performance did improve, but we weren't able to do it to perfection. And therefore, we had to compromise on our animations. What we actually ended up with, which I can show you. Let's see here. Actually, let's launch it from scratch. So you see that it does the typical shift over. If I select something here, you get a little hint that it moved over, and then the video appears. If this actually had, let's say, related talks, hopefully this one does. If it doesn't, we'll have to try again. There we go. Then you select something, shifts over, fades in. So it's a little bit of a compromise that we actually ended up implementing between option 2 and 3. But that's real-world apps for you. You have technical limitations. You have problems with the code. You have problems with the design. Sometimes the design isn't technically possible. Sometimes it's just limitations you created by the choice of language or framework. We went XAML and C#. Some of the developers that were on the project were yelling at me going, oh, I could have done this in JavaScript like this. So it's, you know, a real-world app. This is exactly what happens. Okay, let's see what I had next. So I did want to spend a little bit of time on the other gotchas that I didn't see coming, and I don't think a lot of the team did either. But it was, again, you know, early on, a discovery process. This was definitely a learning opportunity. We got to know the guidelines very well. We figured out little things like, actually, you have topography set out for Snap View. It actually tells you the sizes that you're supposed to use there, too. Some little hidden nugget somewhere, because we were actually following the one that we had implemented on the hub, which was easier to find. And then we went along with it. And then QA comes along. He's like, yeah, guys, I found another guideline thing that you're breaking. This doesn't work. Go fix it. And that happened a lot on this project, the discussion over guidelines, the discussion over whether one option was better for the user or the other, whether this was content over Chrome question at all. So one of the things that I want to talk about is settings and caching. So we do our first App Excellence Lab, and the app is working about 60%-ish. Most of the views are there. You're able to load a video. You can actually see it. And first question, what's your default experience? What happens if the user is offline? Can he use your app? Can you actually go through the 3 different pages? Actually, let's take it to one step further. What happens that the user installed your app, then lost his internet connection and launched your app? Is there a default experience for that? And we didn't actually have one at the time, but it's a great point. You had to think about that. Right now, if I go offline, I can actually go through the app. I'm caching. I'm actually caching the images and the text, so I can go through all 3 hubs, section, and view, and I'll see the pictures, the thumbnails, I'll see the description. I just won't be able to play it. But the user is not blocked from going through your app. So they can still scroll through, still see, oh, maybe, you know, when I next connect to the wireless at home because I just left work and I don't have a decent data plan, I know what I'm going to watch next, right? So, and then we also had to do something for the default experience when the app is being launched for the first time and there is no internet connection. For that, we actually stored 2 images and 1 text, just 2 little things that show up in your hub. But something shows up. The app launches, it doesn't crash. You're able to still select that video and go to the detail. It's just one, it's a thumbnail, and it's a description, but it's still an experience. The thing that got us with that the second time around, so yes, there was 2 app excellence reviews. First one was, where is the default experience? And we implemented it. Second time around, well, you should let the user actually clear out the cache. What if they want to? You know, I don't want to take up all your memory keeping all these things around that you might want to just clear out. So we actually did end up adding a little settings thing where they get to delete all the cached images. Next one, support. So this is when I go to actually put the app to the store. We've gone through a couple of rounds of reviews, QA, everything. And I realized that actually, not only do you need to list it in the app, you also need to list this on the page that describes your app. So you have to provide this information. And so I ended up creating a mailing list just for our app the day that I was trying to apply. Let's see here, support. So that's just macadamia.com, and this app should have its own support email so that people can send you an email. And so we do actually have a list, a mailing list just for the app. So if someone sent that email, I actually get to see it. You know, something you didn't think of, but you realized after. Privacy policy. Oh, this one was funny. So in the guideline, and I think it's become more clear over time, but at the first attempt, very early on when we first built this app, it was a little vague. It said, do you store the user's data? Of course not, we don't. So you don't need a privacy policy. That's how I read that. Went to apply, went through a review session. No, you're using the internet. You need a privacy policy. The IP address is considered personal information. Even though I'm not storing it, I don't have a database, I don't have a cloud that stores any user information whatsoever. The fact is I'm exposing that IP address to a third party. So I do have to have a privacy policy. So, let's go back. One more. And I can show you our wonderful privacy policy. So again, it's not enough to have that in the app. You also have to have this available on your app's description page, so when they go to the App Store. And it actually does have to be available on a link. You have to provide a URL so that before someone decides to download your app, they're actually able to go and read your privacy policy. Because just to have it in the app means they've actually already decided to download your app, then found out about the privacy policy. So that was another interesting one that we wrote up the privacy policy, you know, got together with our CEO and legal department and said, we need a privacy policy, this is why, give us one. Okay, you got one. Oh, I also need to put it up somewhere. You know, one of those just simple gotchas, just all over the place, peppered in this process. Permissions. So again, going back to the whole internet thing, the user needs to be told that actually you're using some information. So here, there's a declaration. This app has permission to use your internet connection. So remember to tick that option off that you do that, and that will appear. The other thing is that, can you allow this app to run in the background and show quick updates when the screen is locked? It's a permissions requirement so that the user actually has the ability to turn that off. Maybe they don't want this app to be running in the background at all. I already talked a lot about the default experience, actually. We did have a little fun with that. So if you install the app and then go offline, you'll notice that we chose a funny talk because it was bang your head and go, why did we forget this option? So we had fun with that one. Please try that later. You can see the talk we chose as our default experience for the fun of it. Okay, so that's the Talks app for you. What I do want to say here is I know that app is up on the store, but a Windows 8 application can be so rich. There's so many features. There's so many things that you can add. As an example, I didn't even show you this earlier, but actually, you do have the ability to share. We implemented that. You can email someone. You can put it to your SkyDrive. Actually, I think if you select one, you can even tweet. Oh, I didn't set Twitter up here. Yeah, Facebook and Twitter as well. I just didn't set it up on my slate. But you can actually do that as well. If I hadn't shown you that, it's still a feature you could have expected because it's a Windows 8 app, right? So going back to the idea that they are so rich, there's so many little features and things that you can have that our app isn't actually done. We have a whole list of things we want to do and improve. And as an example, we don't have, this is the TED Talk section view. We don't have semantic zoom. This is a perfect page for semantic zoom. Why don't we have semantic zoom? Real world app didn't have the power to do it, didn't have devs to do it, didn't have QA to test it. It's designed. So, you know, that's another feature we want to add, and we know this page is perfect for that. The animations I mentioned, we want to implement some of those animations so they're even better than what we're seeing right now. But first we gotta take out about a week of someone's time to refactor our model because it is not allowing us to perform well. On this page, we actually got this really awesome idea of treating it like a ribbon. So when you're down here, you're seeing this video and you're seeing the related talks, but the user chose a thread to get down to here, right? They chose, let's say, popular talks, then they chose a month, and that's when they made it down here. It's still got context that there could be, to the right, if they scrolled, could be another video that they could start playing because it's the next one in the list. And it's related videos. That's an idea that was suggested to us in the Excellence Lab. We haven't implemented it. It sounds cool. We might try it. We might not like it because, well, aren't you taking away from the idea of the detail view? Again, that's full question mark because people have taken stances on different sides of the issue. And it's a big question mark for us. Will we take away from the whole content over Chrome idea by adding more? Or will we just have yet another idea that the detail would really just be full screen? Adding another tier here. So we do have, oh, one more other plan we have, yes. This app started very, very specific to TED Talks. And we had the idea that we would have the actual TED API. Right now it's an RSS feed that we're working off of because the TED API is only open to specific people who apply. And originally we were trying to aim for this competition that we really realized that we had misread and it wouldn't make sense to. So we stuck to our napkin sketch that I showed you earlier and kept with that, but we decided to take this idea a little bit further. Why just TED Talks, right? The idea is talks. Consumption of people presenting content that you really want to hear or talks. So we could take this one step further, and the hub would actually be, there we go. So popular talks could actually be from multiple sources. And it's popular because people are viewing it. It's popular because it's trending, it's new. TED Talks, the next one could be, I don't know, ICANN has cheeseburger, but we don't want to go there, we want to stay stay serious, just saying. There was a whole UX discussion about where do we see this app going, and people actually poured in suggestions of the different talks we would actually support here, and you would start seeing columns of other sources. And that would still work within the idea of this app. And you could even take that one step further. They could choose from a slew of RSS feeds and say, I just want these 4 because that's the ones I'm interested in, or I just want TED Talks. So lots of places to go with this app. And it's just, you know, what's going to be version 2, version 3, version 4. I'm ending on that note, but I'll take questions. Any questions, guys? Yeah?
How does the conversation go between the designers and the developers? So when you're coming up with, like, you talked about the animation, and one
Yes.
of the key statements I think you made, or if I paraphrase, is that, you know, we don't know if we can do that.
Yes.
Or there's performance implications of that. So how does that conversation go? How does the designers and the developers sort of work together to come up with what's going to be the look and feel, what gets implemented versus what doesn't?
So for this project, it's not one of those where we did, you know, often you see the projects where you start with user experience and design, then dev comes in, and then QA comes in, and you have this cycle that only meets up near the end-ish, where something is complete, and then you get the QA, and if a question comes up, only then do you go back to the designer. This app was definitely run more along the lines of all 3 tracks are running at the same time. So we had to be a little bit more fluid with the way we worked. Some cases it would be, we actually, again, because this was, you know, a project that was close to our hearts, and we're like, we want to just do Windows 8, let's. So that meant that, you know, people were taking some of their own time, people were using bench time, so we didn't always have people available. So one of the ways the conversation would go would be this massive wiki page where devs and QA would go with their questions and their ideas that actually I don't agree with the designer here, or I think it would be better to do this. And we called it Francis's page because Francis was nice enough. He's one of the designers at Macadamian. Amazing person who volunteered his time, that every time he has downtime, he would actually read through that page and come up with answers. And that page exists. And when I was actually trying to put this slide deck together, I went to it for reference because there's answers there. You can actually see the thought process of not only the person who posted the question, but also the person who actually answered the question. And not only that, we actually have unanswered questions still on that page. And we've just stuck to a compromised solution. So that's one area that we used for this conversation to continue. Another was that Sarah, who actually did the custom animations that you saw there, we actually booked time with her and said, we want custom animations. Can you take a look at the app? And we actually did a walkthrough with her. And then she went off, came up with some ideas, held a session where we were all there having a discussion. And then we went off and actually tried to develop it. And then we came back to her, had another session, and found the solution that sort of worked for us over iterations. The first place we started from, I don't know if you were here earlier, Thomas, but you saw those sketchbooks that I took pictures of and showed. Those are actually on our wiki as our first wireframes. But there was actually a version of real wireframes that came through as well. As probably about week 3 or 4 that we started to get those. Some of them were actually to the detail level of pixels, and our QA actually took that and actually measured our pixels because topography was important, because spacing was important, and you actually get evaluated in the process of putting your app up on whether or not you're meeting those guidelines. So that conversation itself was actually 3 different levels of designing and developing an app. Yeah, I mean, it was very, very, you know, we have 3 or 4 different things going on at the same time. We actually have a visual designer as well, who's very different from our interaction designers. And we would send him requests and assign him task trackers that, we need icons, or can you give me a new font color because the backgrounds you give me are making the font fade. And that actually did happen. He sent us choice of 2 backgrounds, and my team still blames me because I chose the gold. They like the blue. I like gold. We might change it at some point, but I chose the gold background, and the titles are white. So because he had all these gradients in the middle, some of the titles in the middle would start to fade away, and you couldn't actually see them on certain screens. And it was, you know, the designer did it, the developer threw it in, and then the QA, who actually started to notice it on only a few screens, said, yeah, guys, we need to do something here. And so you had to start that cycle from start again. And have a conversation with everybody there that what's the right decision? Do we change the backgrounds? Do we change the font color? Do we change the positioning of certain things? Is that what's going to help? Maybe keep the background, but change it just enough so that the gradients aren't crazy? So absolutely, this project was all 3 tracks at the same time. Yeah?
What was the time span you would say from the idea to having something that was acceptable? And the other thing, which also comes up in the last thing you were saying, is the number of people that you had involved in this, and whether it would have been better to have a lot less people sort of arguing about colors and stuff.
So at any given time, we didn't have a lot of people involved, but over the course of the project, we had a lot of people involved. And that was simply because it was a passion project, and that meant that people who were working on other projects for our clients would take their own time and put it on this app. It was by interest. It was because Fred was extremely passionate about us having an app for Windows 8 out. So sometimes it was because someone was free for a week and they could help us out. And we would try and define tasks that were self-contained, and they would help us. And that meant developers would come on and off the project. That meant QAs would come on and off the project. That meant that designers would do a specific piece and then do another. Some people actually were involved from the beginning to the end simply because it was a passion project. They just couldn't always give you the same amount of hours. So yes, if we had a limited team that was dedicated, let's say 6 or 7 people dedicated, we might have maybe been faster or done certain things better. I don't know if that would have affected the discussions, because at Macadamian we do have a very open forum, and developers join design reviews as an example, and we'll actually talk about whether or not something has technical implications, whether or not it's technically possible, and that they might have some investigation to do. So sometimes design of something will actually wait for a little bit while someone goes and does a simple investigation, figures out what's possible, what's not, comes back, gives it to them, and design continues. Other times it could be a cycle where design was completed, and then somebody did an investigation, brought it up as whether a UX issue, or by UX issue I mean something that wasn't as good for the user experience versus an option that existed, or they had come up with a suggestion that might solve a specific problem better, that we are open to those cycles of discussions. And yes, absolutely, sometimes that means people say no.
But if you were bringing that down to an actual project that was not a venture of love or something, not something you're involved in, but an actual app development, what would be the kind of time span that you would imagine, and the minimal number of people that would be involved?
For this app, depends on how much features you want and how far you want to go with each type of feature. So your live tiles, your sharing, your searching, even searching has levels, right? So you have to decide how far you want to go, whether it searches while you're typing, whether it makes suggestions, whether it tries to, so that increases the time of everything. And that's what I meant when I said that you can make such a rich app that even with, the other example was being offline, right? How far do you go with that? How much do you cache? Another option is, do you, for handling errors, right? Even for that, we had to decide what was implementable, what would still meet the guidelines, and whether or not we needed to go as far as we could. So this is a pretty basic app. It took us about, I guess, 3 months with people on and off, and as well as the app excellence reviews, which meant that you go through the cycles of making sure you implement whatever you got back from the reviewer as must fix or should fixes. You could do it quicker. It would just be how you define your minimum viable version, right? So you could, and on mobile, it makes sense to put up version 1, and then version 2 would have more features. Version 3 would have yet more features. So you could make it quicker if you had a more basic app.